This is the Shark Recon V3, and in this video we're going to do a teardown and take a close look at it. So inside the box, you just got the headset here, and there is a single rubber ducky antenna which you'll most likely want to replace. And it does come with an internal 18650 battery, which you can charge with the USB port on the side. What I like about the Recon series is that it has a power switch, unlike a power button. And this is great because you don't have to hold it for a couple seconds to power up or power off. It's just instant on and instant off. So let's take this thing apart and see what's inside. First, let's remove the head strap. Next, you'll want to remove the face pad. It just attaches with the Velcro tape underneath. And to get the screws out, you're going to have to pull away the Velcro tape underneath. It won't be pretty, and it may not look the same when you're done, but this is how it's done. I imagine when Fat Shark does service on these things, they just replace the Velcro tape afterward, because mine got kind of crinkled up. And it's really stuck on there too, so it was a little hard to get to some of these screws because I just couldn't pull it apart. The glue really holds tight. So after removing all 6 screws, you can pull the lens out. The lens is attached to this faceplate. And here we go. We can see inside. We've got the main board with the display on top and the mirror enclosure down below. So I recently did a teardown of the Fat Shark Scout, and that has a slightly different design. This display module with the main board pulls straight out from within the enclosure, but here you can pull the top and the front off. It's a separate piece, so it's a little easier to access. I guess the redesign was to make for a smaller headset overall. The Scout is much shorter and maybe a little thinner, and the way they pulled this off was by moving the battery from the bottom to the top of the unit. So this one is a little taller. So once you've got the lens off, you can just pop this plate out. And inside, we've got a single receiver, so this is not diversity. And we've got the main board, which also has a DVR included. Now earlier I removed a single screw from the bottom of the unit, which holds this in place. So once you've done that, you can just pull this whole enclosure out. And you can see that there is a separate board for the power supply. So this is your charger board, and it is also the board that supplies power to the main unit. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem like you can unplug it, so we're kind of tethered to the case here. You'll notice there's no fan in this unit. The Fat Shark Scout had a fan with ductwork going underneath the bottom there. To remove the top plate, there are just 4 screws, and you need to be careful with the wires and the ribbon cable connecting the display to the main board. I was able to pop the display out so we can get a good look at the resolution and the image quality. So this is a pretty nice display. It's an 800 by 480 4.3 inch display. If we compare it to the popular Eachine EV800D, which has a 800 by 480 5-inch display, this has a slightly higher pixel density, even though the resolution is the same. Now let's put this thing back together. So we want this thing to be dust-free, so I always want to blow a little air in there to make sure that there's no particles in front of the display. And seating this display back is a little troublesome because you need to kind of feed the wires through the sides here, and you might need to undo a little bit of this tape in order to do it, but once you've got it, you'll feel it seat into position. Then you can just tape these wires back in and it should be good to go. So when you put the cover back on, make sure you start with the bottom here, push it into the little slots, and then just kind of pop it into place from the bottom up. It should just snap right in. Now, you always want to make sure that everything works before you put the final screws in, so let's test the display and make sure that it powers up and everything's functioning as it should. Alright, we got picture and we're good to go. So, got it back together, and let's have a look at it compared to the Fat Shark Recon V2, which is the previous generation. This one has a higher resolution, and that's about it. They've changed very little, but the display is substantially better, and for the price, I think you would definitely want to opt for the V3 because the V2 really lacks brightness, and it's a little bit pixelated. So next, let's look at the Eachine EV800D. It has a DVR as well as true diversity, which, unlike the Recon V3, only has a single receiver. The EV800D has a slightly larger display and a much larger field of view, which, depending on how your head can handle it, might be a good thing or might be a bad thing. To me, I get a major headache because it's just way too big. It's somewhere along the lines of 70 degrees. So let's take a look at the two displays. The EV800D has a pretty decent display, but I always find it to be a little cool in terms of colors. Next, we've got the Cupsky Prime 2, which is around the same price as the Recon V3. This one features true diversity with 2 antenna connectors on either side, as well as a DVR. So in terms of features, it has a little more features than the Recon V3, but the display quality is not quite as good. The resolution is much lower, and they just aren't quite as bright. Also, Cupsky has a poor track record for quality control. My first Prime 1S had a problem with the joystick. I couldn't press back, so my brightness was stuck on high with no way to go back. And this unit has this kind of strange tearing effect. So if I move my quad, which is pretty normal for what you do with a quad, the screen seems to tear at a 45-degree angle right from the top left corner to about the bottom middle. I don't know if you can see it here, but to me that's a major problem, and I'm not sure I've heard anybody else mention it before. So I recommend the V3 over the Cupsky. And finally, we've got the Fat Shark Scout, which is twice the price of the Recon V3, but it has an internal patch antenna and an external antenna, so it's got true diversity. You can charge with USB-C, and it has a microSD slot for the DVR, which is, in my opinion, the best DVR of any of the Fat Shark headsets on the market. The Scout has a much nicer display, it's higher resolution, and I just really like it. It's a great headset. So let's look at a little bit of the DVR footage. So I thought I'd compare the Recon V3 DVR to the Scout DVR. And the Scout records at 60 frames per second, and it has a much higher contrast ratio than any other DVR I've seen. I really like it, so it's kind of the standard that I compare everything to now. You also want to pay attention to the reception. The Scout has true diversity with an internal patch antenna and a circular polarized on top. Here we've got the Recon V3 with a decent aftermarket circular polarized antenna on top. So anyway, final thoughts. The Recon V3 is a great budget headset. If you only have $100 to spend, then I would probably go for this. You get that Fat Shark support, you get a nice high resolution display, a DVR, and a completely adequate receiver. You don't necessarily need diversity. But one thing to point out is that you cannot use an external receiver. It doesn't have AV in or AV out. So you're pretty much stuck with the receiver that you've got here. But the fit and finish is great. It's a fantastic quality headset. And I don't think you can really go wrong for the price. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe for more FPV related content. And don't forget to drop a like. Thank you. Bye.